Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with guns, gun culture, technical aspects of guns, current events, or the news that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. This week's question deals with the type of sighting systems that you like to use for your home defense rifles if you use a rifle for home defense. And this is also one of those topics that can get really heated. People are very passionate about their personal thoughts and opinions and really feel like they have to defend them. And if somebody disagrees with them, well, they got to show them that they're wrong. Personally, I don't take much stake in this, but I was really fascinated to see the results of this week's poll. All right, so as I said, this is one of those questions that I know people are going to be very passionate about their opinions on, and that is using different sighting systems for home defense and which one is better and why. So with that said, let's dive right into this week's question. Lately, I have been working on upgrading my personal defense rifles, and often this means I am wanting to find a quality sighting system that works well with them. Sometimes I want a Lpvo, or low-powered variable optic. Sometimes I want a non-magnified red dot, and sometimes I just want a set of quality iron sights. In your opinion, what is the best sighting system for a home defense rifle, AR or AK style, and why? And I had to put that little caveat in there, AR or AK. It doesn't necessarily have to be an AR or an AK. It could be an FN SCAR, essentially any type of modern sporting rifle, preferably using an intermediate cartridge. So I asked you guys, what do you guys think? I said what I'm looking for, and really I put another option on the list that you could have voted on, and that is simply a red dot or maybe like an EOTech with a magnifier. Now each one of these has a pro and con, and personally I like all of the different options, and it really depends, I think, on the setting and how you're planning on defending your home or using it in a self-defense scenario for which one works best. But I know a lot of people want to go in only one direction. But let's see what you guys had to say with this week's results. With over 1,100 people voting at the time of me filming this video, we have Lpvo, low-powered variable optic, better for distance, 13%. Non-magnified red dot, EOTech, Aimpoint, and Trijicon, 59%. Red dot with a flip magnifier, best of both worlds but adds weight, 15%. Iron sights, as AK owners say, niet, rifle is fine, 11%. And something else, explain in the comments, 2%. Now, as I said, I think each one of these are viable options, but they have pros and cons. But let's go through each one of these and I'll give you guys my personal opinion and tell you which one I would vote on. Well, first off, we have Lpvo, better for distance. Now, I know a lot of people really like these because you can get a low power, maybe 3 times magnification, all the way out to 12 times magnification on a modern sporting rifle, allowing you to have better accuracy at further distances. And the lower power magnification can be pretty good with CQB, or close quarters battle or defense. And for me, they take a little bit more time to get used to. I have to deal with things like eye relief, which I seem to be kind of sensitive on. And most of the shooting I do is pretty much at 25 yards and closer. And I know if I'm going to be defending the house, I don't need that much magnification. I am someone that has always been blessed with good eyesight. Now, I know that not everyone has. I have never needed corrective lenses. I have 20/20 vision in both eyes. I consider myself to be pretty lucky. So some of these options, I know people say, I really need this because I have a problem seeing, and that is fine. But I just kind of wanted to say that when it comes to my choices, well, maybe I'll pick something because I have better vision than most. But that's just me personally. Now, when it comes to the Lpvo, I don't think this is a good choice for home defense, especially if you live in a suburban or urban environment. Essentially, even with a low-powered magnification of 3 times, well, it's going to narrow your field of view. And I think, especially in most people's scenarios, they're going to be using these rifles at very short distances, 15 yards and less. You just don't need that type of magnification. It's going to slow you down when trying to get on target. But I understand that maybe if you live out in a more rural rural area, having that low-powered variable optic, especially allowing you to go out to 50 yards or 100 yards if you're dealing with a lot of land, or maybe it's a gun that you also use for hunting, I think that is a very viable choice. It wouldn't be my choice for my personal self-defense, but I know there's a lot of people out there that think it is a fantastic option. And then we have non-magnified red dot, which got the overwhelming support of people. I said EOTech, Aimpoint, and Trijicon, but those were kind of the big three, and I only get 65 characters in each choice. But of course, there's other optics like Hollow Sun and the other Chinese optics that you can get that maybe you want to go with. But simply, I'm asking a non-magnified red dot. A lot of times they're very light and they're very simple. In fact, I have one here on a gun that I am reviewing, and this I believe is a Hollow Sun, and this gun is on loan to the channel from my good friend D. This is an APC 9K in flat dark earth, and he's running a Hollow Sun optic on this, and it gives you a huge field of view. It's really a very nice optic with lots of different options. Now, when you're shooting this, of course, you don't get any type of magnification. I actually find that sometimes when it comes to these red dots, especially on pistols, sometimes I have a hard time finding them and acquiring them really fast. But on rifles, especially one with such a big lens, you can see it just fine. My only issue with running this type of sighting system is the battery. I'm not a big fan, especially of the ones that are on all the time. But you want to have it on all the time if you're going to be using it in a defensive scenario. So I always worry about battery life, and I know companies like Aimpoint say that theirs are going to last, 80,000 hours on low settings. So you really shouldn't have any issue, and you just want to change your batteries maybe on the 1st of every year, and you won't have any issues. But for me, that's an extra step that I might forget about. Plus, you're putting your life in the hands of electronics, and electronics can break. They can break down over time, and that does concern me. I have no problem using them, and I think they're absolutely fantastic, but that's the downside to them. So that's how I feel about those, and you guys overwhelmingly thought that definitely was the best option. Then we have red dot with a flip magnifier, best of both worlds, but adds weight. Now, when it comes to my range guns, I think this is the best way to go. Here's a gun that I recently reviewed, also on loan to the channel from my good friend D. This is the Hanel BT15, or the CR223, and as you can see, he has this set up with an EOTech and a magnifier. So you do get that huge field of view. If you put the magnifier to the side, you look through that, you can't miss that reticle. But if you want to go out to further distances, you have that ×3 magnification with this G33 magnifier. The downside, as I said, it adds a lot of weight. And when you have this flip to the side, it's kind of bulky. It can kind of get in the way. If you're going to use this for home defense, well, I kind of think that could slow you down. And it's just, as I said, it's just in the way. Flipping that to the side, you've got a large mass that you have to handle. So that might not be the best for home defense in all scenarios, but I think as a range gun, this is an awesome setup. So now let's go to what many AK owners consider to be the very best, and that of course is iron sights only. Now, as I said, I already told you I have very good vision. When it comes to my personal setup for home defense, well, I do have one of each one of these in some form on various rifles. I think when it really boils down to it, iron sights are the way to go. If you have to defend your home in some type of self-defense scenario, you're not going to be in some type of prolonged firefight, and your engagement is going to be at a very close distance. You might not even use the sights at all, because when it comes to rooms, even here in my big garage, well, there's not much distance between me and the other side. I don't really need an expensive or complicated sighting system. I just have to point and shoot. And so for me, the sights are always going to be there. They're not prone to breaking, and I can see them really well. Now this, of course, as I said, is my personal choice. Now, as I also mentioned, on some of my home defense rifles, I do have red dots. I do have low-powered variable optics on them. I like to collect them all and have them all at my disposal. But the ones that I really go to often are iron sights, or if I do have some type of red dot optic on them, I have iron sights that co-witness and are easily deployable. So I don't just run a gun without iron sights. I'm going to run one with the optic and the backup iron sights, so I have that option in case there's some issue with that optic. And then we have something else explained in the comments, and many of the people that I think voted for this in the comments section below were talking about combinations of the two, just like I mentioned. But if I was going to vote in this poll, I probably would have gone with iron sights, even though I'm a big fan of the other optics and sighting systems and own them and use them all the time at the range. So with that said, let's dive into this week's top rated comments and see what you guys have to say. With our top rated comment of the week, we have the reindeer, the rabbit, the bat, who says, "In my case, my eyes aren't what they used to be. That being said, I think having a Lpvo has more pros than cons. Gives you the capability to better visually assess your target. Getting a more detailed look at who you could have to shoot may save your butt if you shouldn't be shooting at them to begin with. Also allows you the opportunity to be more precise and effective with your shot placement. We all know that pistols are fine for close-up work, but if all you have is your rifle and you're too close for something as weak as 2x zoom, then point shooting should be accurate and adequate enough at that range. I think folks should practice point shooting at reasonable distances more often anyway. We should know our own weapons well and be fairly familiar with their point of impact for when a situation arises in which we can't properly take aim. For any scenario I can imagine around my priority, a 2 to 7x with comfortable eye relief works great for me." So he was in the minority, but a lot of people that obviously think the same way voted him and gave him a thumbs up, and that's why he was the top rated comment of the week. He also brings up a fantastic point that I don't think a lot of people really think about, and that is, if you ever have to pull your gun in some type of self-defense scenario, well, your heart is going to be racing. You are going to have adrenaline flowing through your veins, and you are only going to have fractions of a second to make critical decisions. You're probably not going to take aim very well. You're not going to take time to get that rifle on your shoulder, make sure you have a good sight on that dot. You're pretty much going to point your rifle and shoot. Because as I said, you only have fractions of a second. He makes a good point. People should probably practice at the range point shooting way more often. Because if they do get in a self-defense scenario, that's probably how they're going to use their firearm. Then we have Wandering Spider, who says, "I prefer the red dot with optional iron sights. Has to be a decent optic though, but not as expensive as an EOTech." And he brings up a good point and something that I alluded to earlier. Some people are going to buy those cheap Chinese optics, and while they might work, they're probably not going to hold zero. I tell people that when it comes to optics, I totally understand that it is very hard to spend so much money on an Aimpoint or a Trijicon. They look at that and go, that's hundreds of dollars, and in some cases cost even more than the gun that they're putting it on. But I have learned that a quality piece of glass, a quality optic with the proper electronics will serve you well. I have used and reviewed cheap electric optics, and let me tell you, they are not worth it. You have to make sure you buy something that is quality and especially is rated for the type of gun and the round that you are shooting. I can't tell you how many times I've been at the range and someone has some type of $35 or $40 red dot optic that they bought at the gun range on their AR-15, and the lens literally falls out of it because of the power of the recoil. It's just not designed for that caliber of weapon. And they're like, well, I don't want to spend $300 or $400 on some type of red dot optic when this 35 one looks like it's going to work just fine. And it really doesn't. It's really important that regardless of which sighting system you decide, you buy something that is quality. Quality doesn't necessarily mean top of the line. There's a lot of stuff that is budget friendly, but remember, you do get what you pay for. Then we have Thaddeus Legion 78, who says, "Mine has a Vortex red dot with backup iron sights. Unless you plan on stepping outside onto your front porch and shoot at bad guys who are 500 yards away because you live in the middle of nowhere and have one of those homes that's a mile down a dirt road from the main road, Lpvo is overkill." And I do agree, because if you're going to use your gun in self-defense, especially at a longer distance, well, you better be able to justify why you did it. Because at longer distances, well, they're either running away or you have plenty of time to prepare. And you also have to think about those legal ramifications if you ever have to use a gun in self-defense. So you want to make sure it is an option of last resort. And shooting at 100 yards, well, it's going to be really hard to justify that to any prosecutor or judge. Why in the world did you have to go overkill and shoot somebody coming on your property 100 yards away? Well, we all know that is not reasonable. I also like the fact that he talked about the backup iron sights. I should have mentioned this in the last comment. I do think it's really important, and I'm glad to see that other people are talking about this. Sure, use a red dot, but make sure you have those backup iron sights that co-witness, because if that electric optic goes out, you will need those iron sights. Then we have Sean White, who said, I stopped using red dots as my primary optic on my 5.56 about 5 years ago. I've ran hundreds of two-gun stages. I have yet to see Lpvo slow me down at all, even for close-up targets 25 yards and in. For me, I can run Lpvo just as fast. My Lpvo of choice is a Trijicon TR24 1:4 or TR25 1:6. I'm a dual illuminated fan, and I don't like relying on batteries for my optics. Now, his comment continues to go on, and he gets a little bit more specific about exactly how he likes to set everything up, and he makes some great points. Now, I should have mentioned that some optics don't even require batteries, and I prefer those a little bit more. That's one of the advantages I really think Trijicon has, especially with their ACOG system, over some of their competitors. You have that fiber optic illuminator, plus you have the Trijicon that is built inside, so you don't have to rely on electronics, and you get an option for shooting at further distances. I also like the fact that he gives us information saying, hey, he's never been slowed down by this. Now, I do not do competition shooting, so I can't speak for myself. I just know at the range, it seems to slow me down a little bit, but I think anything can be overcome with training. Obviously, he's having a lot of success, and I think that speaks volumes to if you have an optic like that, as long as you train and know what you're doing, you're not gonna have a problem whatsoever. And then finally, we have West Coast Preparer, who says, for personal defense range, I have become a fan of fixed magnification, something in the range of 2.5 to 4 times with a large reticle for fast target acquisition. Lpvos are heavier, and if FFP, the reticle is very small one time. Red dots are lighter, but the reticle options and the range leaves something to be desired. So he also likes things maybe like the Trijicon that has that fixed magnification. I can see the pros and cons. Personally, I understand why the military uses that type of optic, especially the ACOG, the fixed magnification. They're probably not going to be doing much CQB. Most of their distances are probably going to be at 100, 200, or maybe even 300 yards. They're not going to be needing to shoot a mile, but they're not going to be up close and personal. So you really have to kind of figure out what is the strategy for how you plan on using that rifle. I like all of the options for different scenarios. Personally, for home defense, I want to have iron sights. Or if I'm going to be running a red dot, I got to have those iron sights as a backup. And that's just my personal opinion, but it was really interesting seeing all of what you guys had to say, and I love getting your first-hand accounts and your personal experiences, because I think it kind of opens everyone's eyes. One of the problems I don't like about the gun world is that we get very opinionated and assume our way has to be the only way. I personally find these questions sometimes to be very illuminating for me, because I get to hear your personal experiences, and it makes me reevaluate my own thoughts and opinions, and I like to think I grow in turn. So there you go. That is the Texas Gun Vault poll question of the week. I hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you want to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I will also put it in the description. Go click that. Go check out and see what I'm asking you guys for next week's poll. Go vote, comment, and like other people's comments so we can get the top rated comments of the week. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.